Hello everybody and welcome back to Throttle Grotto. This week I'm going to show you how to rebuild the choke cable in your Datsun for $10. Maybe 20. Stay tuned. Alright everybody, so this week I figured I had a very small project that I wanted to film, and it involves getting the Datsun running, and it's rebuilding choke cable. The choke cable in this car is really beat up. If you look at it, you can see here the ends are all frayed. The housing on this one is in okay shape, but not great shape. You can see there's some rust here on the end, which means that there's been some water in here, which means that the cable, the sheath inside of this housing is not sliding properly. And up here, there's a little break in it too. So fortunately for me, I have a complete spare clutch or choke cable. I keep saying clutch cable and having to edit it out. I have a complete spare choke cable that has really good housing. The housing is in really good shape all the way down. There's no cracks or anything in the outside of the housing. The knob's in good shape. The mechanism of it actually is in really good shape. There's not much corrosion on it at all. The little plastic bushings inside of it are in good shape and still intact. So I'm going to rebuild this one and swap it out with the one that's in the car. So I don't know. I will find out and put down here somewhere how much a replacement choke cable is. And hopefully there's significant savings. If they're $10, then I've wasted a bunch of time. But I'm fairly certain that a piece this complex is probably over $100, but I will find out. So I went to DatsunParts.com, which is a pretty good vendor for Datsun stuff. I haven't used them personally, but I've heard a lot of good stuff about them. So here is the choke cable, and if you scroll over, it's $154. So hopefully I'm going to save myself $144 of that right now. Okay, so the first thing I have to say about this process is go slow. Like everything, well, especially like these knobs are super fragile, like your little choke knob there that sticks out of the dash. So underneath there's a little flathead screw that should come out fairly easy. I've already had this one apart, but you don't want to lose that one because that's going to be a hard screw to replace. And so you can see there, it just threads into a hole in the shaft. And then from the face of your dash, you're going to have this 2-hold retention knob. So you can use a snap ring pliers to undo that. I mean, if you really want to get savage, you can use something on the outside, but it'll screw up the knurling. And then inside the dash, or inside the console actually, you have a washer and a spacer, and all those just come off the, I had to gently clamp this part right here. You can see where I just barely clamp that into the vise, and then this just taps down and slides out. So you can see there how it meshes with this part here. Now if you need to replace your cables at this point, you can go to a bike shop and get some housing cut to the same length, and I would use brake cable housing for this. And you might install a ferrule on this end, which is just a little metal cover if there's too much slack in there for your taste. You can always install a ferrule and take up the slack, but take that piece with you to the bike shop when you bring your cables, And if you don't have the right tools, they'll cut them to whatever length you need. So that's where the second $10 comes in. The first $10 is for this. And this is a Jaguar tandem brake cable. So the key component of this is that it's 1.5 millimeters in diameter. And if we measure, we take our calipers and measure, that is also 1.5 millimeters in diameter. So same diameter as the factory. So it should work as the factory intended. So the next part of taking this apart is just sliding this whole assembly out. And then you'll see that sometimes all of it will come out, sometimes it won't. But you have your shaft, which has the choke cable kind of pinched in it. You can see there. And then you have these spacers, which keep it. If you don't have spares, you're going to have a hard time finding stuff like this. Somebody may 3D print this stuff, but try not to break these things, because these are the most important part of the whole clutch cable reconstruction, I guess. Alright, so the next step is to get the old cable out of here, and it's basically looped through the holes in this little washer spacer mechanism and then over the shaft behind this washer. So it may take you some prying and finagling. There we go. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to take our brake cable out of the packaging. And you're going to notice that one end of this has a soldered end. I can't remember what the technical name is for this. Now, if you're fancy, you can use a bicycle shop cable cutters to remove the end. Otherwise, have them cut it off before you leave the bike shop. So next, you want to take each end, put it in the holes. And then keep them the same and just feed it through. So once you feed that all the way back down in there, you may have to do a little prying and bending on this end of the cable right here where it enters, or it comes out of the plate here, just to get it to bend behind this washer. But now it's installed. Just make sure it is loose, doesn't bind up at all. Alright, so next step is our pieces that we took apart. So our spacer goes on there. And then these black or white plastic spacer washers. So when you have it all back together, just make sure it all slides appropriately. So that's really all there is to rebuilding one of these choke cables. It's a really quick and easy process. I think overall, even with showing you guys this, it only took me about a half an hour to do it. So it took me longer to go to the bike shop and get the cables and get the tools out than it did to actually do the process. So if you have one that's all boogered up like the one that I have in the car here, don't throw it away. Chances are, unless you had a lot of water in the car, that this end of it is still pretty good and won't require a replacement. It's most likely the cables and the housing that are causing the problems. And that's actually the same thing on a bicycle. The cables and housing usually are what causes the problems with shifting. The dirt and grime and all that stuff get in the housing, bind up the interface between the sheath inside the housing and the stainless steel cable, and causes all kinds of problems. So now this cable is ready to put back in the car and hook it up, and I will have a perfectly operating choke cable just like brand new. So hopefully this helps you guys save some money and rebuild your own cables at home. So that's all for this episode of Throttle Grotto. Until next time, get out there and work on something.